and we're so happy to welcome Frank Sinatra Jr. to the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here. So, as I was doing research about you, you know, I guess a lot of people, when they hear your name, they would just sort of automatically assume that that would help you gain recognition and success in a career, particularly the career of singing. But, you know, a couple of websites, fan sites of yours, were saying that it's actually kept you from getting the recognition that you deserve as a singer, that you're quite talented, and that, you know, because you're always in the shadow, that you haven't really had the recognition you deserve. Do you feel like that?
That's a very difficult question to answer, actually. It seems to me that if we took two great big pieces of paper and we put things on perhaps yes or perhaps no, and made lists of all of them, after a day, a week, a month, or however long, we would be left with one thing, two big long lists on two pieces of paper. Mm-hmm. And the point of it, rather than belaboring it, at least from my viewpoint, is let's just go ahead and do what we can do, and ignore anything like that.
Right. Make the best of every situation.
That's right.
Has music always been the clear path for you?
Well, as a child, I started studying music, and one day it occurred to me that I was getting to the point where I couldn't be a student anymore, you know? And I figured, gee, maybe I better think about getting a job. And I just went ahead with what I thought I had some prowess for doing.
What was your first job in music?
I was a piano player. I was studying piano, things like that, and I wanted to be a songwriter and a pianist. And then I got drafted into singing, is what it was.
What was it like to be a little boy in Frank Sinatra's universe?
That's a pretty big piece of area. Universe?
I mean, he's just this larger-than-life figure, and to be sort of a little boy growing up around that, what was your
impression? I was just considered a
impression?
home, not really a universe. I never looked at it as quite that big a scope, frankly, yeah. I had normal parents who had normal attitudes about raising children who they hoped one day would be normal.
Really?
Oh, sure.
It was. You felt like you just had normal parents growing up.
Absolutely.
Like, even when, you know, the Rat Pack, or are they dropping by, or are you?
No, because that was a different life. That was the professional side of Frank Sinatra's career, but growing up at home, no, all of that was nowhere nearby. Oh yeah.
Were you sheltered from all that? Was that?
No, not sheltered. It's just that the career of being an entertainer of the success that those people had involves a lot of travel. Very, very seldom on the home front, in other words.
You know, I think people connect with your father's music. And of course, he was, you know, the greatest purveyor of the great American songbook. But I think they connect with it in many, many different ways. And I'll just tell you from a personal standpoint, my mother, who was a big fan of your father's music, because she would have been right in that Bobby Soxer era. And my mother died when I was 15, and I find that I can still stay connected with my mother through listening to your father's music. It's not completely rational to me, but it brings me some degree of comfort. And you must find that people have many different reasons for.
I find that a very nice compliment to his music,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah. He wasn't fond of interviews, by the way, was he?
Oh, he did a lot of interviews.
But TV interviews? I mean,
Oh, sure.
Really?
Oh,
But I remember him with Larry King. Larry King always trots out that interview that he did with your dad.
Oh, Larry King is one of the great opportunists of the media. But the fact of the matter is that was only one. He would do, in different cities, he would go on local shows. They didn't have to be quite as magnificent as a national program.
Right.
And I always admired him for that.
He did that big one with Edward R. Murrow, too, right?
Oh, that was Person to Person.
That's right,
That
yeah.
was in 1956. You have an excellent memory.
That
He
was-
admired Edward R. Murrow very much. A most extraordinary man, Mr. Murrow, the late Mr. Murrow. It's a shame that he died at the young age he died, but he was quite unique.
Yeah. Well, they all smoked like fiends.
Oh, but absolutely, they smoked. They smoked themselves into the cemetery.
Yeah.
But Edward R. Murrow, during the, I'm sure you've heard of in the United States, the McCarthy era, Edward R. Murrow was the man who took on Joseph McCarthy toe to toe. And he had everybody, people in the federal government, he had them all buffaloed. They were terrified.
Yeah. He was really the only one that could do it.
He went after him toe to toe, and that's one of the reasons why I think Sinatra at the time agreed to do that show, because he admired him. I mean, this is a man who was standing with a radio microphone when the V-2 rockets were coming down, Hitler's little calling cards. This is London.
Yeah.
And he was standing there when the explosions were going off.
Right.
That's a dedicated person.
No kidding.
I don't know if I'd have changed my shorts,
Oh,
if I
exactly.
tried to do that. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Luckily, it was radio.
That's a little heavy. Yeah.
What life lessons did your dad try to instill in you as you were growing up? What did he talk to you about what it means to be a good person, a good man?
No, not really. It was actually very sparse in the advice department. Primarily because he felt that he was not the most intelligent person to be giving advice. He would say, listen to so-and-so about something if you're curious about it. And I believe the message was somebody smarter than I am, which to me is eloquent of intelligence.
Absolutely. How intimidating was it when you you were the conductor for your dad for some time, and then
Right,
you
yes.
start, and now of course you're doing Sinatra, Sing Sinatra this Saturday at Casino-Rama, but how hard was it in the beginning to start to step in and work with him professionally?
Very hard. To be his conductor was walking on a tightrope from the top of an 80-story building to the top of another 80-story building. And when he called me up one day in 1988, he was still giving concerts at that time, and he said, why don't you come out and conduct for me? I was with a bunch of my people getting ready to do one of my shows, and after they had revived me with the smelling salts, I said, you want me to conduct for you? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, why me? He said, because maybe another singer can understand what a singer is trying to do. And I took that as a great compliment.
And is that how it worked out?
Not exactly. I felt some footprints on my posterior on several occasions.
Right.
Right.
It's like Dave said, that the music, that music that your father sang is just, it's something, it doesn't really matter what generation you're from. It can, it's so evocative, and it just immediately can be a signpost for such significant parts of people's lives. So I'm sure that when people come to see you this weekend, it will just be a fantastic show and people have a wonderful time. Frank Sinatra Jr. will be performing his show, Sinatra Sing Sinatra, this Saturday at Casino-Rama. It's truly been a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me to your study here.
Well, doors open all the time.